Garmagat Las Caherlican Minister, on the outset I do want to acknowledge the great work done by the Department of Social Protection and those people working on the ground, and the monumental task that they had ahead of them to try and meet the demand for PUP and for the other payments. But I want to go back to talking about the Local Employment Service. I believe you are making a monumental mistake here, and I need to ask you some specific questions around that, Minister. Thank you.
Deputy Minister.
And thank you, Deputy Conway Walsh, for raising this matter. It's wrong to look at the tender published on the 26th of May as profit-focused. That's the first thing I want to say. It's absolutely client-focused, with a strong focus on local services, community linkages and client service levels and outcomes. It's expanding service provision into 7 counties which currently don't have a local employment service. About 90% of the fees to be paid under the contract are based on client service rather than outcomes. So the outcome fee is an additional payment, which is about 10%. The evaluation criteria are heavily weighted towards client service and community linkages. And finally, the request for tender published on the 26th of May is the product of an extensive process involving lengthy consultation with the sector and the engagement of external consultants. The current cost-met funding approach used with existing local employment services and job club contracts involves scrutiny of all day-to-day expenditure, placing a non-due administrative burden on both the provider and my department. This approach diverts valuable resources away from supporting clients. It does not enhance employment outcomes for the clients of the service, and it does not recognise or reward in any way high-quality, innovative providers. And we have some really good providers, and we have others who are not so good. Moving to a new funding approach which pays for each client referred, coupled with a strong emphasis on community linkages, so it's linking with all the other services in the area, and quality of service provision, will reduce the administrative burden, encourage innovation and is more likely to deliver enhanced outcomes for those availing of the service. The procurement process now underway invites tenderers to demonstrate how they can best provide a quality employment service, giving them the scope to demonstrate their expertise.
Thanks,
and we
Minister.
know they have expertise, their professionalism and their commitment, which is not in doubt.
Thanks, Minister. Deputy Conway Walsh.
Minister, just a couple of things. First, I want to question the Indicon report. That's a public document now, and that was the basis for the decision that was to be made here. I believe there's an alternative to this decision-making in spite of what's been said around the EU directive. But we have to question the data and the statistical information. I believe the data is inaccurate. There was in that, if we give Mayo, for instance, it was cited that there were 65 pathways to work referrals in 2016. When there were actually 650. The other thing I would ask you is, why is it only based on 1 year when most of the decisions around would be based on multiple years, because the referrals quadrupled, we know, in recent times. Also, it was said that there was 5% attendance, when in fact there was 80 to 90% attendance in the Mayo region as well. So I want to question the basis for the decisions that are being made. I want to know, how much will the providers be required to have as reserves? What is the financial capital required by the companies for tendering?
Thank you, Deputy. Well, first of all, can I just say they won't need reserves because they're going to get their payment up front. The payment will, whenever a client is referred to the local employment service, and now just to say once again, we're expanding these services under the first phase of the request for tender. So we're putting it into areas where that don't have this employment service currently. So the first thing is, when a customer or a client is referred to the local employment services from the intro office, they immediately get a 45% payment. So that means that they have the money to focus on the client. The second, when the client then signs up to a plan, they get the next 45% of the payment up front. So when they want to sign, so they have that money to help the client look for a job and to support them in every way they can. The final 10% is paid to them when they get a job. So this is actually it's upfront payments, and again it's totally focused on the client.
Thank you, Minister.
And I think that's the most important issue here.
Thank you. We're actually running into the leaders' time, so I just ask you to be brief, and I know Deputy Cleary wants to come in.
Thank you for that, Minister. I think that's very important that organisations wouldn't be excluded on the basis that they didn't have the financial capital. I want to know, will those who are currently employed in the LES services once the new contracts are in place? So if a group of LESs miss out on this contract for whatever reason in the tendering process, will they be protected? Will there be a transfer of undertakings for the staff there to ensure the job security for the existing staff? What plans are in place for any redundancies that have to be made, any lease agreements that have to be broken, any contracts with service providers, and the disposal of assets around that? Because that will technically belong to the department. So what plans do you have in place for that? I need to say as well, Minister, I'm absolutely appalled by the treatment for the centres for the unemployed. We have 2 centres for the unemployed in Mayo that have been operating for 35 years with enormous voluntary work done there, and they are being closed down, and I think it's the wrong time to close them down.
And just to say, regarding Deputy Conway Walsh raised the issue of redundancies. It is the case that the local development company are the employers here. I would hope that the providers can come together and work collaboratively as well, because, as I said, and I'll say it again, the client is the number one person here. It's the person that needs the support to get back to work.